Good day. It's Tuesday, November the 23rd. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. We've got CEO Owen Moore and VP Strategy and Growth, Margaux of BeWhere, joining us today. BeWhere is a mobile Internet of Things and solutions company designing and selling sensors and trackers, as well as software applications on a SaaS basis for industrial and commercial uses. BeWhere, I've got them on here today because I think they've got a smart, albeit fairly conservative strategy for growth, and they seem to be executing on it quite well. They've got a solid balance sheet and have done a good job of balancing growth and profitability over the years. Lots of companies have blown themselves up in the IoT space, and I think BeWhere has taken a smart strategy using a good razor blade model to get their hardware out in the market, which will drive long-term SaaS annuity. But remember, this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Owen and Margaux, thanks for joining us today, and let's hear your pitch.
Thanks very much, Martin. We appreciate you having us on today. And, I think, not to reiterate what you just said and how you introduced us, but we call it managed growth. And we think that's prudent in today's day and age, particularly for earlier stage companies. And, we're kind of proud of our results. We released Q3 numbers last Monday, I believe, so just over a week ago. And before I hand it over to Margaux to give a corporate overview and an overview on our company and the markets we serve, just some highlights from the recent quarter. We posted our 8th consecutive quarter of positive EBITDA. We posted record net income. We posted record revenues, and things seem to be trucking along for us. No pun intended, but we do a lot of work in the trailer and trucking industry. So with that, Margaux, why don't you take us away?
Sure. Thanks, Owen, and again, thanks, Martin, for having us today. So we'll give the full overview to our audience today. So I'll start with the basic, which is our business model. So as you both said, so we are an industrial IoT company. We manufacture, design, sell little devices that have sensors and GPS on them. They operate on the low power networks called LTM or NB-IoT. And we serve mostly industrial companies in North America. The advantage of low power IoT, those new networks, is that they are carrier owned. So the roaming is available pretty much everywhere in the world as those networks roll out. It's the first real innovation in the world of call it almost smartphones for years. We operate in two main segments. We operate in the asset tracking industry, where we replace old and obsolete technology with newer and cheaper devices. And then we greenfield the connected sensor market, essentially, by offering new low-cost solutions where it was impossible to use tracking devices before because of the cost. As you said, our model is a SaaS model. We collect a one-time hardware revenue, and then we have the monthly recurring fees. Those vary depending who is the customer and whether they buy just the API, which is an integration into their own software, or they use a full user interface. The IoT market is, there's a lot of research on it. It keeps growing every year. There's a new research that's put up to date. So right now, the latest one that I got from I think it was a year ago, was that it's now growing to 55 billion by 2026. That's just for the asset tracking market. And the global IoT sensor market is expected to reach almost 30 billion by 2026, from 8.4 in 2021, which is today's. So huge metrics, a lot of room for many players, and still BeWhere one of the early player in that market.
Margaux, is there, there's so many different markets in the IoT mobile asset tracking space. Do you have any sense of kind of, maybe in the markets you're going after, what the penetration rate is at this point?
That's a good question. I think we've seen an acceleration over COVID, especially as more people work from home. In terms of the exact number, I don't have one. I think it's still a very largely untapped market. What I can tell you is that the adoption rate is going faster and faster, and that you're starting to see some large companies such as Apple offering asset tracking devices for retail, for consumers, which was unheard of before. The other aspect of that growth is that you can start tracking assets that have a much lesser value. So before, asset tracking was kind of a reserve model for expensive assets. And with the new technologies that are coming up, you can see assets that are less than $1,000 being tracked. Does that answer?
Yeah, and it's of the typical curve in the CPU market where the cheaper it gets, it just opens up more and more opportunities. If you've got $100 track or $100 a month service, it only can make sense for certain things. And if it gets down to 10 or $5, oh, hey, I could track anything.
Absolutely, and that's where the force of BeWhere is that we develop trackers that are quite cheap, much cheaper, and we sell hardware at very low margin. Trackers are usually less than $100, and they can go down to $50. And then the data that we consume on those IoT networks is close to 1 megabyte per month, which is nothing when you think about what we used to use on 3G and 4G, which is usually 1 gig, 10 gig, so $20 a month. So now you're talking about maybe $1 or $2 a month to track an asset. When your return on investment is really quickly done, and it's not only a basic calculation that's on the cost of the asset. Now you have a lot of soft costs that come into play, such as what is the hours that saved to my staff to make them more productive, more efficient to find their things.
Great.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about 5 points that make, in our opinion, BeWhere a very attractive company. As not everybody knows us, a lot of people may ask, well, what makes you unique? What makes us unique is the fact, this is my 5th point, but I should put it in the first, is the team that BeWhere has. The founders of BeWhere, Owen Moore, Chris Spencer, Brian Boychuk, Alban Oxa, those guys know very well the asset tracking market because they created a company named Gray Island originally that used to do telematics. So they know exactly how the technology works and what is the request. And actually, the story of BeWhere, the telematics industry became very consolidated by companies buying each other. You probably have heard of, Geotab is one of the big private one, and there is Fleet Complete. Like all those players, they do a lot of rollout and acquisitions in terms of growth. So it is a consolidated market, and also regulations makes it that telematics, so tracking vehicle, is becoming mandatory. So what the guys saw by exiting this industry is that, okay, we know how to track trucks now, but how do we track things on trucks? And that's how BeWhere was born. And back when it was, when the guys started making the company, they already knew what was going to be the next big thing in the cellular networks. And they already knew that LTM and NB-IoT was the next generation cellular IoT that was going to come out. And very, very early on, I'm bragging about my team, but I think that very early on, they already had the nose to find out what was going to be the successful thing. So they started developing a product that was based on guidelines. It was a bet, and it was a bet that proved to be very successful because being so early on the market, and I'm moving to the point 1, it also allowed us to go to those networks, those AT&T and Bell and T-Mobile, and propose something for new networks that they just implemented, but they had nothing that would actually operate on them. The little story about AT&T is the guys were in LA, and the networks were just coming out. I think it was in 2017, and a lot of advertisement was made around it. But they actually didn't have any devices that would work. So they just pop up to the booth and they said, hey, if you have a SIM card, I have a device, and it worked. And so that's how the success started. So for a company of our size, which is relatively small with 12 people, we have gigantic partnerships with AT&T, T-Mobile, Bell, Fleet Complete, Rand McNally, SecureQuip, etc. So this is a big advantage to BeWhere. And then the second thing is what I mentioned in my introduction, is that we both replace existing technologies that is very expensive with as good, if not better, but much cheaper, which is a huge opportunity. You're renewing a market that was kind of saturated. And last quarter we sold over 23,000 new devices, and then we accumulate those recurring, but we also create new opportunities on things that could never be tracked before with those low prices. The third point is our model is a B2B model. So we only work from business to business, or 99% of our sales is B2B. And what that allows is massive sales. We don't have to have a giant team to support those sales. If you look at the size of our clients, and that BeWhere is only 12 people, I think it's quite impressive actually. So that's one of the big advantage to BeWhere as well. Very lean company. If you look at our financials, it's a very lean company. And then, the 4 point, this is recent. It's another Q3 is another record revenue, profitability, what that we achieved over the 12 last months against COVID. Very humbling. COVID was it propulsed us over profitability, which was a real achievement, and it shows that our investment thesis in the company was correct, that remote technology is the future. And then our cash position keeps increasing, and we have no debt. So very clean balance sheet, very clean company all around. That's it for my 5 points. Martin, do you have any question?
On you talk about the low cost strategy, and maybe this is going forward, because what I thought was that there were a lot of, when IoT was first getting hot, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, there were a lot of guys getting out there and they talked about, oh, we're getting these big fat margins and stuff because we create so much value. And they seem to get a lot of trouble on the traction. Where you guys, am I right, you taking a bit of a, let's say, a Costco model, you're putting so much of a margin on it, it's a modest margin, and as you drive costs down on the learning curve, then you share that, you help open up the market by driving your costs down. You're not trying to maximize your margins like an Apple, but you're trying to get as many products out there. Is that the basic strategy? So if you can build these things for $1 a piece, and you'd sell them for $2 a piece, or $1.50 or something like that, just because there's so many more opportunities at when the price gets cheaper.
Exactly. The angle is not to make a lot of margin on the hardware. It's to offer clients the opportunity to have this hardware for not much, and then we make the margins on the recurring, which is the software, is 90% margin or around. So the idea behind BeWhere is to undercut competitors by offering a device that is cheap and efficient, and to have mass sales instead of having a big margin and selling less.
Are you finding that you're still has everyone followed your model? So now there's like pricing pressure, or are most of your competitors trying to get more of the premium, high value add type of strategy?
Owen might comment on that, but I haven't. Personally, as a salesperson, I haven't noticed that our customer were bargaining on the price. I think everybody wants to haggle because that's into our human nature. But no, still 5 years after, or since 2018 when we launched this product, I am not finding a lot of pressure on the price.
When you bid on projects with companies, and you don't win all of them, I presume, do they give a rationale why, like, they went with another program? Maybe they had, I don't know what the aspect of, or it was just a bigger company they were dealing with and they felt more comfortable, or what? Why would you lose a program?
Sure, and I think this is a good question. We don't win everything. We win a lot, but when we lose, it's usually because the solution that's offered by the competitor is a end-to-end solution. So for example, we are partners with Geotab. Geotab is a fleet management company. They offer telematics, so tracking vehicles. With them, it's a full integration, so it's a nice packaged product. Usually we win because it's a nice packaged product. So you can track your assets and you can track your truck, and it's into the same map. You can apply your geofencing, you can apply your rules, through whether it's an asset or a truck. So the differentiation is usually about the services that are brought to the product, not really about the product.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sorry, I like the conversation quite a bit. So this is just a quick overview for people that aren't familiar with how it works. It's a very simple model and simple sales. So it's we have assets, we stuck a tracking device on it. We have some different version of the device. I'll show them later. There's a SIM card into the device that will connect to those low power networks, the LTM and the IoT. It collects the data from the device, which is location and some of the sensors like temperature, humidity, light, air pressure. then it sends it to the server very easily. Servers are, we respect the servers. If we need to sell to Europe, we will have a server in Europe, etc. And then we offer the data can be displayed either through our software, which is the BeWhere portal, or any software through the API. And most of our clients use the integration and the white labeling offering that we have. It's very tempting.
With I was wondering, sorry, on the back one, if we could just, not getting too technical, but on the LTE-M and the NB-IoT, could you just talk about those standards a little bit and sort of, I don't know, how they work or how widely they've been deployed or how they're different from like your standard LTE?
I'll try not to sound stupid, but Owen might be more adequate to answer that. Owen, do you want to take that one, or you want to let me try it?
You're good, Margaux. Let's hear it.
Okay, so essentially LTM is a subset of the LTE network, which is, as you know, is your high power, high frequency network. Those networks are developed to be the compatible with 5G. So that's why we call them low power 5G. And the difference, so they are on a lower bandwidth. So they're meant to be machine-to-machine networks. They don't transfer, you can't transfer a lot of data over those networks. Some people will say that eventually it'll really, it will replace the 2G, but for us, it's really, the focus is on machine-to-machine communication. So the difference, as I mentioned earlier, is the amount of data that is drawn through those networks is very small, so 1 megabyte or a few kilobytes per message, which is huge compared to what your phone would consume. So that's the advantage. The other big thing.
Sorry, just on that front, because what you're transmitting is pretty simple, basic. You just have basically longitude, latitude for where you are, and then maybe if there's a temperature sensor, 32 degrees or whatever. So you don't have. You're not sending photographs or anything over it or video.
No, exactly. It is meant to distribute just small information. There was discussion that LTM could be used to transmit video, but I don't think we've been exploring that yet. NB-IoT is kind of a similar technology, except that you need new hardware to have your cellular towers, share that network versus LTM, which is kind of I'm not going to say flip of a switch, but kind of a flip of a switch. So if you have LTE on a tower, you can have LTM a lot more easily. So the infrastructure cost and development cost to have those networks is lesser. I think that's all I had. Owen, did I forget something about this?
No, that was great, Margaux. I think you nailed it. The only other thing that I might add to that is the networks we use are part of the 5G ecosystem. So it gives our clients the comfort that the network isn't going to go away anytime soon. And Margaux mentioned, displacing things like 2G. 2G is set to be turned off right across North America, eminently in the US within the next couple months. And our clients don't have to worry about the longevity of the cellular network. That's usually what creates churn, is a network going away. And because this is a part of the whole 5G ecosystem, they can be rest assured that it's going to be around for a long time.
And is LTE-M, is it as ubiquitous as the LTE networks, or is the 5G networks, or have some carriers implemented it and some not?
It's ubiquitous here in North America, from the southern tip of Mexico to the very far northern reaches of Canada. It's a little patchy in Europe, but it is still evolving and still being rolled out. The interesting thing about Europe is where we're shutting down 2G here, they continue to expand 2G in Europe, and our devices actually allow a fallback between 2G and LTM, and that allows us to roll out in Europe without having to worry about some of that patchiness that I mentioned in the LTM networks in Europe.
But Europe's not going down there's not like a fork in the technology where they're going down a different way. They're just relying on the 2G and limited LTM. Yeah,
if there is a fork, it's actually between NB-IoT and LTM. So you do see some countries that have rolled out NB-IoT and not LTM, and some the other way. And then you have some countries like you have here in the US where you have both networks available pretty much nationwide throughout the US. So the fork is between two 5G technologies rather than between older technology and newer technology.
All right. I think we've covered that well. Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next one.
So now I'm going to play a little video, which is actually putting one of the use case in the forefront, and this is also AT&T putting out this video, one of our partners.
Hey, I'm Mason, and I'm here to talk to small business owners about how AT&T's Asset Tracker 1 can help them keep track of all their valuable assets. Let's talk to them. You ever had anything that's ever, gone missing on the job site?
Brian, come here. I'm sorry. This actually recently just happened this week. We had the excavator that we were supposed to bring over here, but Brian brought it to the old site. So the whole time, we don't even know where it is.
So how did that make you feel where everybody's blowing up your phone trying to figure out where this thing that you're supposed to be responsible for?
Feel dumb, made a mistake.
What would happen to you if you were the only person on this site and this generator went missing?
I could lose my job.
What if I told you that this is all you need to save yourself from embarrassment? Do you understand?
I understand.
Because this is what you need. Do you know what it is? Say it on this count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Asset Tracker 1 from AT&T. I guess I'm the only one who's doing it again. Did you know this thing has a geofence? Scientists, they got together and what it does, it shoots up and it makes a fence around the entire area. And if anything leaves that geofence, you get an alert. It's like a shot collar for a dog, but except like the only way you gonna know that is if the dog leaves the fence.
I want to use it now.
You can't, you gotta buy one. Get tracked, bro. Little leaf blower head, get tracked. I don't know what it is, but it looks like it costs more than what I got. Get tracked, because if not, it's gonna get snatched. Remove all the guesswork of managing your assets with AT&T's Asset Tracker 1. We love you so much. Thank you, AT&T.
There we go. We love Mason. He's great. We should hire him as a salesperson, actually.
So just to state the total obvious, the AT&T Tracker 1 is your tracker there. It's just white labeled. They're selling it as their own.
That's correct. And that's most of our sales with those large partners and resellers. They like to white label their product and integrate into their own platform. I'm sorry, I don't actually have a device with me. I wasn't planning on being home today, but I could show you right now that the BSOL that is holding is one of our devices that we have.
And that one you have is sort of self-powered. It's still got a little solar panel on it, so it charges up. So
correct.
And
yeah, this is the slide right here. This is the first one.
All right. And sorry, just on the marketing side, given that AT&T stuff, do you have to pay for any of that sort of co-op advertising, or AT&T just buys it? They pay, they produce the videos, they pay for everything. You don't have to participate in those programs.
Absolutely, yes. It is up to the reseller to do it. We can talk about some co-event or co-marketing with some of our customers, but big guys like AT&T, they usually like to have the full handle on their marketing and advertising.
Yeah. All right.
They do a much better job than I would ever do anyways. So the product that we were talking about here was the BSOL, which is, I think, one of our best seller. It's absolutely wonderful when it comes to tracking outdoor asset, because it is, as you said, self-powered and self-rechargeable. So it's got a little solar panel on it. It's a very small device. It's about the size of my hand. And you can just put it at the top of a trailer and boom, you don't have to worry about anything. And what we like with the, again, like talking about very small data cost, is you can track down to every 5 minutes with this device when it's, sufficiently powered by the sun, which is a lot of our customers being in North America have plenty sun. Even in Canada, we don't have any issue with that. And then to conserve the battery, because it's always a balancing act between battery and data, is when it goes back to being stationary, it only pings once a day, because what you need to have more pings is the thing is not moving. So we develop a lot of smart firmware onto our devices to make it, call it more performance, always in the idea of saving the battery. Then we have a device that has, this is the B10 that has 2 AA batteries inside of it, at 1 ping a day. It's supposed to last up to 10 years. We haven't been in work for 10 years, but we're seeing excellent results. These are more for assets that won't see the sun all the time, so it's placed lower on the equipment. And then another big seller that we have is the BeWhere. It combines both of the above, and what it does is it's plugged into the ignition, and it can bring down every 2 minutes without having to recharge it, because it is plugged into the ignition. And even when the ignition is turned off, it has what we call a tow mode, where then it behaves like the beast-hole. It will still ping once a day when it's not moving. And then if it's being towed or dragged, it will report more frequently because it's sensing a movement. So again, it's all about the intelligence that we put on the devices. And then we have those 3 products are FirstNet certified. I don't know if you're familiar with the FirstNet network. It is an AT&T network in North America. It's dedicated to first responders, and certain companies, large companies, also have access to this network, essential companies. BeWhere devices are the only ones certified as asset tracker on that network.
And just to the FirstNet, that's essentially like a replacement for CB radios. So you first responders have a secure channel without using sort of old-fashioned stuff to communicate and share data and so forth. Is that roughly it?
It is a dedicated network for them, yes. So it's not accessible by the rest of the population. That's correct.
All right. And just just a little back. I don't know if it makes any. But AT&T has the like they got a government license to sort of operate that. They have to get so many users on it, and then it's sort of they have an earned monopoly in that sort of for that market. Correct?
I believe that's correct. Yes.
All right.
Then there's a video on this that I'm not going to show you, but it shows you all those 3 devices and how they are used. It's a bit long, so. This is the exact example that we were talking about, the white labeling and how the B2B marketing happens. So we've got 2 customers and partners on this screen. We have Fleet Complete, who has also certified our devices through FirstNet. They don't have a logo on it, or maybe they do in certain devices, but on the right side, you have Rand McNally, who put their logo onto the devices. With certain customers, we also do co-development of products where we take some of their feedback on customization and we build a product just for them. Go ahead.
Who is Rand McNally? That name sounds like a publisher.
It is. They used to make maps. I have a desk here that has a Rand McNally map on it.
Okay.
So yeah, they used to build atlas and maps, and then they when it's more your area of knowledge, but they became they offer now fleet management products.
Yeah, there's certainly an interesting story. You probably remember from when we were younger, Martin, when you would go by a truck stop and you'd pick up a map that gave you your routes, and used to be on a grid, and you'd locate where you're going by saying, B12 and look in that square, and there you are. The reason I say it's an interesting story is they're one of the, a relatively few number of companies that were paper-based that have successfully digitized their whole business model. And I think it was a natural evolution for them to get into, truck tracking and trailer tracking and leveraging, all that good data they had for truck routes in a paper format and move it to a digital format. So they certainly have some uniqueness in the industry that truck route data certainly positions them. That's proprietary to them. And like I said, you can look at a whole bunch of companies that have just been blown away by the digital revolution. Things like Yellow Pages and White Pages, who just really didn't successfully transition their business model. Rand McNally's a great example of one that have transitioned to e-commerce and internet-based businesses.
And so they package your asset trackers and API into overall sort of enterprise solutions for various companies, right?
Yeah, that's correct, except that it's not our API. They take our API to integrate the data of the devices into their server. So if you go on to, let's say that you're a subscriber of Rand McNally product, you have your portal, and you go and you log into your Rand McNally portal, and then you have your fleet management telematics devices, and then you would have your asset tracking. It would never say BeWhere anywhere, essentially.
Yeah. So when they're bidding after projects and so forth, you're not really involved with that. They just go on and make their bids. They win a big contract, then you get an order for 100 or 1,000 tracker type units, and you're not really involved with their sales process. So you get to leverage their business development.
It depends. The bigger the customer, the more comfortable ease with our devices, but we still, especially because the guys have so much experience in it, sitting, in sales discussions with those guys is something that we do quite a bit. So we do nurture the sales. We help them identify good opportunities. If we see something that they should bid on, then we'll let them know that they should bid on it. So it is a true partnership in that sense. It's just not us putting our feet on the desk. There is a continual work behind it.
Do you have any exclusivities where you sell it to one company and they're the only ones allowed to track forklifts or whatever, some little sub-market?
No, not really. We do have certain exclusivity with Bell in Canada because they are an investor into BeWhere, and they help us develop the product quite a bit. But other than that, it is an open market.
Right.
So the next big thing for BeWhere is, as you said earlier, you made a good comment about how the new technology, the new components allow technology to be developed. This is what we're seeing with those IoT networks, is that the component manufacturer are starting to come out with smaller products, better chipset, etc. So, it's very important for us to stay ahead of the herd. Sorry. So we're already developing our next product, which is the B Mini, which is that little black device. It combines all the technology that our other tracker have and more. It is not a competitor of our existing product. It comes to fill a gap because normally we kind of only focus on outdoor asset tracking due to the low power mode. But with this new baby, we added indoor location services through Wi-Fi and BLE. So this is the size of it. As you can see, it's about a fourth of the size of our existing product, which is on the screen. And just to give you an idea of the scale, this is my AirPods, and this is my B Mini tracker. On my AirPod, I'll come to it later. You probably have some questions about it, but I also have an AirTag and a tile, and we'll talk about the difference in those technologies in a bit. But the focus with the B Mini is to open new markets. It is fully launched as of Q4. We already have orders. We're just finishing a couple of certifications. Excuse me. And then we also made it, more flexible by being USB rechargeable. So I know Owen has one in his car. I have one in my car. So you can, the kind of things that you can start tracking is wider, and it opens maybe consumer market for us because it is so small. So we go from industrial, outdoor to, industrial/consumer, from large to small things. As we were saying earlier, the commoditization of this technology, meaning that it's more accessible to everybody. So, we've had pilot with bike shares company. We're thinking about tracking packages like a FedEx package that got lost. We had this use case happening to us. We can see where it is. We can think about selling to, partners that have markets into recreational vehicles, ATVs, small boats. And then we have the remediation companies with all their ventilators, their fans, and all that dehumidifier that are very expensive. And then we have a new market that opens with the cash tracking market, which is really big, thanks to that Wi-Fi and BLE micro positioning. So it just opens that market that I was talking about earlier. Excuse me.
All right, just to go back to, you're going to, I'll ask some questions on the B Mini after your little video. Is that another video you're going to?
Yeah, it's a very short video. It's the one about tracking a bike, actually. It was done this summer. So on the right, you can see our software, and on the left, the BME stuff. It shows you how we can track exactly where the bike is. Just what we call our little teasers to bring documents about the product.
And so what do you, it's a smaller product than your commercial one, but it seems to have some more features. Like, what's the trade-off there, because it works. So internally it works. So if you're in a warehouse, there you may not get GPS data. So it'll tell you which Wi-Fi, or if there's a Bluetooth beacon, you're kind of in this radius. Is that how this sort of indoor functionality works?
Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly what it is. The trade-off is the size. Making it smaller means you also have smaller batteries. Battery is really an industry that keeps technology from exploding in my head. So, the battery is still a rechargeable battery here, but it's pretty small compared to other products. So you have less autonomy unless you keep it recharged. So that's always one of our main goal at BeWhere, is to keep long battery life, to make it less cumbersome for the consumers or customers to recharge it.
And your industrial or commercial grade ones, they don't have USB chargers on them. I'm guessing that makes them a little less waterproof and so forth if they're sitting on top of a tractor or something like that. Am I kind of on the right track there, or why not have rechargeable ones on your commercial grade stuff?
You can with the one I showed you earlier. I think my computer just froze. That BeWired one, it's all devices are IP67. For commercial assets like a trailer that has a power attached to it, or like a generator, you can power that, no problem.
Okay.
It wouldn't have a USB port, but it's so easy for us to just develop a cable that has any kind of pin to put it into anything. Actually, we did a pilot with a bike share company, and they have a light that's powered by a dynamo in front of the bike. And we realized very easily we could just wire it into that little dynamo self storage battery at the back of the bike, and just have this always powered on front of the bike. So it's a very, very, very flexible from that point of view.
And the target market for this is kind of everyone, or?
Yeah, it's like throw your net and see what stays. Yeah, we have, we have a lot of opportunities. We want our existing customer to be able to sell it for different kind of use cases. So let's say that you've been tracking your trailer with the B-Sol, and maybe you can start tracking the pallet inside the trailer with the B-Mini. So you just add another level, going smaller and smaller every time. And I can track my husband, for example, and this one he doesn't see, I'm telling you. So then I'll go briefly over the offering that we have. So this is a web portal. It's an easy. You log online. You can see all your assets. You can create some rules, some groups. It's fairly basic from that standpoint. You have access to the historical data. It's a good app. It's rugged. It does what it's supposed to do. But most of our customers actually prefer to integrate our data into a third-party software. So here is an example with Geotop, the fleet management company based out of Oakville here in Ontario. So they just integrate all the data of the trackers into their own telematics platform.
And your API, does it integrate quickly into different telematics or enterprise management systems? Yes. In that? It's not a big
no
to do that?
I think I've seen API integration take place in less than a week.
Okay.
So very easy. And now, if you're done with questions on the business, I'm going to pass it on to Owen to talk about the financials. And Owen, if you have anything that I may have forgotten, please go ahead.
No, that was great, Margaux. Thank you. So we'll just spend a couple minutes talking about the results that we posted last Monday. We're on calendar year, so it was Q3 results that we just posted, and maybe you can hit the next slide. See if I can update my screen. So we posted a record quarter for net income, about $145,000 in the quarter. We also contributed about the same amount to increasing our cash position and also our working capital. So cash is going up, working capital is going up, and it's entirely based on operations. It's not based on any financing or warrant exercises or option exercises. Total revenue was also a record, just shy of $2.5 million for the quarter. We're proud of these numbers. I mean, Margaux mentioned that from a human capital perspective, we have about a dozen people. We're getting close to annualizing towards 10 million in revenue based on the last quarter results, and we think that's indicative of a company that's running lean and mean, and you know, you don't find a lot of companies kind of hitting that $1 million annual mark per employee, and so we're proud of what we have accomplished. A lot of that has to do with our distribution model. Obviously, we don't light up a large sales team. We leverage the sales teams of the AT&Ts, the T-Mobiles, the Bell Mobilities of the world, in return for giving up margin. I mean, you know, you touched a little bit on getting the product out at a low cost. The way they account for spending money on, you know, videos and online marketing that Margaux showed was because they mark up the product, they sell their wireless data, and they mark up the service, the application fees, and that allows them to produce decent margin for themselves, and therefore contribute part of that to their marketing efforts on our solutions.
If you can flip back a page there, Owen.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some seasonality between, like, Q4 is kind of a low quarter, and then you sort of peak at Q3. Is that a trend we should continue seeing? So when you report Q4, that'll be softer than Q3?
You're picking up on a good point, and traditionally we do see seasonality. Q3 has always been our strongest quarter, and that was represented in the most recent quarter. We do expect to try and level it out as we go forward. But yeah, traditionally we have seen that seasonality, and you see the curves, you know, year over year, at least from 2019 to 2020 to 2021. It's fairly identical, and it's that quarter over quarter, year over year growth that we're really focused on, and obviously we're focused on bottom line performance as well.
Given you have two sort of sides to your business, the sort of one-time hardware sales and the recurring SaaS, and you've got the seasonality. This is saying to me that the hardware sales is still a significant part of the revenue, as the SaaS is sort of steadily growing. What's the rough split, or what's your base SaaS kind of revenues right now, and how fast is that growing?
Sure. So it represents approximately 30% in the most recent quarter. Don't quote me exactly on that, but in and around that range. It was, I believe, somewhere between 700,000 and 800,000. Margaux, you might be able to verify that number for me. You know, the interesting thing, Martin, on a good quarter, when you sell lots of hardware, your percentage of recurring revenue actually drops. So on a weak quarter, your recurring revenue is a higher percentage, and so, you know, showing a high percentage of recurring revenue isn't always indicative of the company producing good results and producing good quarters. But it's growing. I mean, you know, look back 2 or 3 years ago, and it was probably only a couple 100,000. We're over 700,000 today, I believe, Margaux, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't pull the numbers. I don't know where I keep them.
Okay.
And you're without paying you guys your monthly fee, your boxes are essentially useless. They're paperweights at that point. It's
every device
can't use it without you guys getting your share.
Yeah, every device goes out with a recurring revenue associated to it, and the amount of that recurring revenue is dependent on how much value we're adding to the end user. So, in the cases where we're feeding data to Rand McNally, you know, Fleet Complete, Tenna is another great example, a great company that Margaux's done wonderful things with. You know, a lot of the added value is based on their software, and so our recurring fee is less for those opportunities. Where it's our platform, and I think Margaux showed, maybe you can put it back on the screen, when it's our platform and clients are using our software to run reports and to get asset utilization and look for things that have either been misplaced, lost, or stolen, then we get a little bit higher recurring revenue. That number can vary, you know, from an MSRP perspective, from $1 to $3, depending on the level of value add that we're providing. That's actually, I think you might have even mentioned this company when you started the introduction, Martin. We can't mention them ourselves, but that's a very large retail distributor in the Bay Area that has a massive fleet of trailers that service all the way from Sacramento down to just north of LA. And we continue to roll out with that particular client, monitoring their trailers.
So if I'm if you guys are running about like what $750,000-ish or so, and I take on the SaaS, maybe you're averaging $1.50 or $2 a unit. It sounds like you've got what 300,000-400,000 units tracking stuff out there around the world.
That's a little bit rich, but probably about half of that, Martin. It's not a number that we disclose, but we do disclose the unit sales every quarter. So last quarter was 23,000 units. That was a record for us, and that's something that we can use to model going forward. It's a good benchmark for us.
Gotcha. And when did you sell your first units? How long ago was that?
Our first.
2018.
Margaux got it. I think she sold it, so she remembers.
No. The first LTM unit was May 2018 with that 20,000 unit order from Fleet Complete.
Got it.
It was not one unit, it was 20,000.
And are those all still operating and so forth? That's.
Yeah, no, we have a relatively low churn rate, well under 5%, and we have a correspondingly large adoption rate.
All right. I'll let you get back to the net income there. Sorry for the tangent.
Adjusted EBITDA was hampered a little bit in the most recent quarter due to Forex, but without the Forex, it would have been a record. Like I mentioned right out of the gate, we posted our 8th consecutive, let me just count that, 8th consecutive quarter of positive EBITDA. That was a milestone for us. Obviously, moving into positive net income was also a milestone for us, and we see bigger and better things to come in the coming years.
Great. And since you mentioned on the Forex, you sell largely in US dollars. US is your biggest market. The stuff you manufacture, is that Asia manufactured, or is that those assembled in Canada? And have you had any supply chain issues since that's
Yeah, good question. I think we're seeing inflation go up around the world, and a large component of that is due to logistics and supply chain. It's not just the technology and hardware industry that's getting hit. It's getting hit from food. There was a story that ran up here that our pubs ran out of Guinness and they can't get more Guinness beer for their patrons. Overall, we've been managing quite well through it. And we have increased our lead times a little bit for large orders, but we continue to get product out the door. And the way we were able to do that was by making firm commitments to our component suppliers to ensure our place in line. And like I said, the team, Chris and Alvin and Ivan and the team have been doing a great job in continuing to get that product out the door on a reasonable basis. Price of components, that's an interesting one. We went through a large initiative over a year ago to reduce our BOM cost, reduce the bill of materials, the component costs that go into making our device. As we went through a process to reduce the cost of components, we saw an increase in the price of components occurring simultaneously. So it's kind of let us out net. We were hoping to improve margins as a result, and instead we were kind of maintaining our old level of margins. But at least we had some foresight to go ahead and try and reduce that bill of materials cost prior to getting hit with component cost increases over the last little while. Was there another part to that question that I missed, Martin?
I don't think so. I think you hit it.
Okay, right on. I think that's Margaux, if you want to. Cap structure. So we're traded on the Venture Exchange under BEW, on the OTC under BEWFF, I believe. These are Canadian numbers. Enterprise value right around 20 million. There's not a lot of companies on our exchange that have sort of a 20 million enterprise value that are also profitable, that are also growing at the pace we're growing. So we think we're in fairly rare territory with how we're performing. Working cap is 3.78 million. What I mentioned, that increased in the recent quarter. Cash also increased from the 2.5 range to the 2.7 range. And once again, that's entirely based on operations. It's not based on any investment activities. 11 million warrants outstanding. Those warrants primarily are out of the money for the most part. I believe there's 10 million warrants that are up around 35 cents. well, there, Margaux actually has it on the bottom of that slide, 10.6 million at 35 cents. The rest of the options and warrants reside in employees' hands. It is one of the ways that we try and keep our employees happy, is making sure they have a position in the company, and we'll continue to issue options to employees as we move forward.
As you mentioned before, you don't have, what is it, 12 employees you guys have?
That's right.
Roughly, how many are like R&D or sales or admin, or like you could, Bob does this and that, I'm sure you could go through.
Yeah, we do end up wearing a few different hats, but the engineering team is fairly well defined. So it's over half, 7 of the 12 are engineering related.
Okay.
And you know, it's a credit to Albin and his team. Albin, I feel, is one of the strongest wireless technologists in North America. He has a ton of experience. We worked together, and he ran development at a former company that we started and grew and eventually sold out to one of our largest competitors. And so he can run a mean team. Over and above that, we do have contractors that we utilize and bring in on a project basis, and that allows us to get the work done, but not have the continual burden of having them on the payroll.
But at the same time, you clearly own the IP. It's not just all outsourced to some.
Yeah, no, it's all internal. Everything from the electrical engineering, the PCB design, to the middleware and the firmware that goes on the device, to the back-end software that our clients log in on. It's all BeWhere intellectual property.
All right. Good stuff. We do have some questions queued up here, and we're getting close to an hour. So why don't we, I'm going to read some of these questions out, and let's see how we can do with it. So I'm just reading them out as I see them here. Seeing as a main differentiator for BeWhere is its management team, what assurances does the company have that key personnel won't get poached for other opportunities or competitors?
Maybe I should let Margaux answer that one.
I think Owen touched on a good thing. There's, being such a good team, there is a family feeling to it. I think, Owen is just not my CEO, he's also a friend. We kind of have this feeling towards everybody. We've been at it, we've suffered through good days and bad days. It's more than just a job for pretty much everybody at BeWhere. And then, as he said, obviously, you want to keep your employees happy, so you do compensation, you do option, etc. I mean, there's no secret. Happy employees, happy company.
Well said, Margaret.
All right. What updates can you provide on the New York City project?
That's a Margaux project as well. Why don't you go ahead, Margaux?
Sorry, I posed my screen. I don't know how to unpose it. Well, that's not good for me. I'll go back in a second. So city is going, New York is going very well. So we've had our first order for 2 different agencies of 1,000 units each. We are now on the base of the authorized vendors for the entire agencies of New York, which is something like 20 different agencies. We've got, again, we work with them along their budget. So usually the sales come at the beginning of the year because that's when their budget is done. We've introduced them to the B-Mini, and there's a lot of interest in that as well, especially from, oh God, I can never remember the name of that agency. Corrections. There you go. So the original 2 were the emergency and then the housing. This is all public. This is all found onto the city website. And we love working with them. They're very nice guys. This is an adventure that we're going through. We've AT&T and Geotab has site partners, data connectivity provider, and platform provider. And honestly, it's been a great adventure, and we look forward to getting more units out to them.
Margaux's done a wonderful job on that account. There's a reason they say if you can make it in New York City, you can make it everywhere. And she initiated that account, and she's grown it and really has performed.
I'm going to say that Owen helped as well.
Very kind, Margaux.
We're a team. I think that's one of the question, the answer from earlier. We're also a team. It's not just one person does one thing. Alvin, for example, helps with some marketing ideas. Brian was going to do some support. Carm is going to do some support. I mean, we've, our skills are very transversal. And I don't have the background that some of the guys have, so it's good that I'm helped as well.
Okay, and what's the plan to use your growing cash pile? And I'm going to add on to that. Is there any M&A potential in your future, or you got what you got the goods to go on your own?
So the plan is to make the cash pile even bigger. I think that should be everybody's corporate goal. M&A, yeah, I mean, we're active. We're looking at different entities. Obviously, we're a combination of a value and a growth play. And so we take that same thesis when we look at M&A. So, if it's not accretive to earnings, if it's not accretive to revenue, then we're likely not going to pursue it very hard. But there are some opportunities out there that kind of fit that. And then with a little bit of, strategic alliance, you can double or triple up on that accretion. So we are active in looking at M&A opportunities. There could be some usage of some of the cash associated with that, in addition to the equity that we have in the stock as well.
Would potential acquisitions, would they be, you seem to have a pretty good technology platform. Would one of the things you'd be look at maybe acquire something in Europe or Asia to capture a client base and then kind of leverage that, or would it maybe be more on the technology side, or depending on the opportunity?
Yeah, it depends on the opportunity. We certainly have some great partners that we're already aligned with in Europe, and some new ones that we hope to talk a little bit more about in the coming weeks and months. They represent potential targets for M&A, but we also look for technology that's not quite identical but complementary, and trying to kind of unleash some of the value by taking some of our experience and applying it to their business model and having improved margins as a result.
Given that you mentioned your cash balance and your enterprise value, the question here about reinitiating the NCIB for the company to buy back stock, is that a potential use of cash?
Yeah, that's a good question. We will be looking to return equity to shareholders, in some format. NCIB is obviously a natural. We initiated the NCIB right when COVID hit, and a lot of technology companies took it right on the chin from a share value perspective. We were one of the ones that did, and we didn't think it was warranted. And as we saw our share value drop off without really any underlying thesis for that, the board approved, moving out with the NCIB. We will look to light that up if we find ourselves in a similar situation, or if we find ourselves undervalued, for sure. And that, more than likely, that's the way we are going to return equity to shareholders as we look to do that going forward.
Gotcha. And on that front, what is the institutional and or insider holdings of the company, roughly?
Yeah, it's with a few phone calls, we could, and insiders, executive management, and board, we could probably locate about half the stock, so about 40 or so million shares. If we're looking at the large shareholders outside of insiders and management, Bell Canada is a large shareholder. We do have some of the investment funds that dabble in the microcap world are represent shareholders. And then we have some high net worth brokers that have gotten involved, and like I said, with a phone call or two, we could probably locate about 40 plus million shares of the 88 million we have outstanding.
And Bell Canada is what, a 9.9% owner, something like that?
I think it's a little less than that. I think they're in the 6 to 7 million share range on the 88 million. So I can't really do the math that quickly, but I think that's about 7.5%.
Okay.
Margaux?
Gotcha.
6 and 7.
Yeah. And on the other sort of, does the company have an exit strategy? Do you guys see yourselves being scooped up by a big guy in the future, like a Bell or something?
Well, that's... I guess if you look at our history, that's what we've done in the past. I mean, we think we have a sweet spot sort of between 0 and 40 or 50 million in revenues. Right now, we have our head down. We have no, board direction to look for alternative transactions for us, and I don't think right now is the time to do that. We're growing pretty good. We're producing cash, and we think, well, quite frankly, I think we're undervalued. You're constantly seeing insiders buy stock in the open market, and that's likely an indication that I'm not the only one that feels we're undervalued. A number of people in our company feel the same way. I think we have lots of runway, Martin.
Yeah. What's the company's biggest bottleneck to achieving greater scale or adoption?
Yeah, we need to keep lighting up big distribution, obviously, with T-Mobile, AT&T, and Bell. We have most of the large MNOs. There is another tier of distributors that are important for us, and that's the Fleet Complete, the Rand McNally's, the Tennis of the world. There are lots of companies out there that represent that tier, and we've been pretty successful in the last 3-6 months of bringing some of those some additional players at that tier to help us with distribution. So certainly distribution is key to us. I think we've done well to date on lighting up big distribution, and look out for some more news about more distributors coming on. We constantly have to, as a hardware company, you constantly have to evolve the solution. We're expecting to announce some really cool things on some of the existing products for trailer and container tracking, things that will give extremely accurate odometers. Hub odometers is the main technology used to track road mileage today. We think we can disrupt that entire market and digitize it, and that should be another boost for the company going forward with some of our existing core products, and then coupled with the launch of the B Mini, we think we have some good things to come. But you constantly have to both advance the core existing products as well as bring out new solutions, and I think the team's doing a good job of that with the Mini and what I just mentioned on the existing product line.
On the product development side, there's a question here saying, should we be looking for a B Nano or a B Micro in the future?
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate. As the technology continues to advance, batteries are slow on the advancement curve, but they are advancing, and don't be surprised if in the future we make a bigger, smaller, stronger, better product.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a general technology development curve. It'll be longer, smaller,
cheaper, more sophisticated. That's
always smaller, stronger, faster, better. This is a Deftones song, by the way.
And now on the product, so people are looking for ways to sort of hack or how other people could circumvent it. What prevents someone from removing a tracker? And do thieves have little signal detectors where if it's hidden on something, they can find it before they steal it? Or is it still early in the adoption cycle where thieves aren't kind of looking for asset trackers yet?
I'll take that question. So this is a good question. So this is specifically about anti-theft solution. We don't market a product as anti-theft solution because it has to be placed on the outdoor, for example, for the diesel. You have to be very cautious when you go after anti-theft solutions because usually there is an expectation that you can recover your asset with a GPS device. Now, there is a million ways, as Miles say, that you can either jam a signal, or even if it's indoor, there's no guarantee that you'd be able to locate it. Even if you locate it, you still need to call the police. You can't just go ahead and break into somebody's property because you think they stole your thing. There is a lot of consideration into that market. And for those reasons, we usually try to stay away from anti-theft solution. So sure, somebody can go and pull the device away. There's nothing really that we can do about it. It's not been an issue. If an employee would take away the GPS tracker from the trailer, they would get in trouble, so they wouldn't do it.
Right. We should be wrapping it up here. I was looking at, you guys have put out 6 news releases in the last year, so you don't give a lot of information to the market. Is there going to be additional communication going forward, or should I just set up a Google alert on BeWhere and sort of try to see where AT&T is launching things, or New York mentions it, and sign up to your news release service or your how to best keep up to date with what's going on with BeWhere.
Yeah, we share a lot of information on social media, Martin. We leverage LinkedIn and Facebook, and to a certain extent Twitter, and that's where we ask people to stay up to speed on company updates. We not only share interesting stories about the company, but also industry news and industry events. So we certainly encourage that. From the press release perspective, we do limit it to either important news, important happenings, or our quarterly results. I can point to a lot of companies that don't even press release their quarterly results. It's not a requirement on the venture, and we've been very transparent in getting those numbers out there to anybody who's interested through news releases.
Right.
We have a lot on LinkedIn, Martin. I think that's where most of our information goes because it's also very professional.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, we are well over an hour here. Any final comments to wrap things up here?
You want to wrap us up, Margaux? You want me to take that?
Well, you introduced. I think you should wrap up.
Very well said. No, Martin, thanks very much for having us on. It was a pleasure to meet you finally, and best of luck with everything that you're doing with the channel. From the company's perspective, we have a few catalysts that we're working hard on, including the launch of the B Mini, including bringing a larger client base and a larger distribution base to our existing products, and we encourage you to follow us as we move forward into 2022. So thanks again, Martin.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, and maybe when we get some of those big catalysts out, we can get you back here and get a bit of an update on those catalysts and how they're shaking things up. So thank you very much.
Love to.